Hello. So today I'll be talking about unit test in Python, of course, right? First of all, let's talk about what a unit test is and why should you run a unit test. A unit test is just a way to actually, uh, it's kind of funny to say it. It's a way to test, a unit or a specific portion of your code, a specific functionality of your code, to make sure it's working. For example, if you look at this is our function, right? Our function, as you can see, all our function does is increment the passing value by one and return the value. How do we make sure it's working? We can write a unit test for that particular function, and Python comes with a way for you to write the unit test easily. So there's this module called the unit test module, right? And it has what we call the test case. Now, this test case is full of assert method, right? It's a bunch of them, right? You can actually see the assert method if you go to this particular link. I'm going to pull this link, but you should be able to find it online. It's form of like a bunch of assert method. For example, assert if two things are equal, assert if something is null, things like that. So what unit test does is that it simply allows you to test a function, a part of your code. For example, this one, all we have to do is just, we have to just, how do I say this? Uh, Inherit the test case class from the unit test module and write test fun. Write something that starts with test. So what happens is that when you call unit test main or when you tell unit test to run this, what unit test is going to do is that it's going to look for every method that starts with test and run it, right? So it's going to look at the body and any function that starts with test is going to execute that particular function. So now, if it executes it, if everything goes well, for example, this assert, if there is no error, that means our test for this particular function is passing. If it runs into error, it's going to let us know that our test is actually not passing, right? And if you run this, you're going to see something like this. It says run one test, blah, 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 and I ran one test and everything is okay, everybody's happy, right? And also it's possible to go through a different route whereby you can directly tell unit test to execute this particular unit test by running this command from the command line and say Python, I want to invoke the unit test module and I want the unit test module to look into my main module, which is this file, right? And execute my default test, which is this class. So it's going to do the same thing whereby it looks into the body of the class and execute all the functions that starts with tests, right? It's actually very, very easy. Now let's talk about a test fixture. A test fixture is actually very easy. What it does is sometimes you want to run the test, but you need to set up some things. You need to set up a database connection. When you need to set up a database connection for a test to run, right? Let's say you have to connect your local MySQL database, right, to for the test to run. Now, the process of setting up those requirements in order for a test to run, and also the process of tearing down those requirements for your test to run is what we call test fixture. So it's just like you're preparing to run your test. So I'm taking this example from one of my open source projects, Sentry, right? As you can see from here, it's calling, uh, it's setting this particular property. Now it's actually defining two methods: the setup method and the tear down method. The setup method, this is actually inheriting from the test case, the test case class. You can see this is a test, right? Now, what is happening in it? This is the test that is it's being run. But the difference is that we have the setup method and we have the tear down method. The setup method just set up things that needs to be in place before you run your test, before we can able to run this test, right? Right? Things that need to be in place before we are able to run this particular test. Now, the tear down method, what it simply does is it just clean up whatever was done in this particular place. Right. As you can see, before we run the test, it simply sets this particular property into an empty dictionary. Then, after the test is done, that means the teardown is being run, it simply change the value back to whatever it's supposed to be. Right. So, a test fixture is just a bunch of things that need to be done to prepare well for a test to run, and things that need to be done to clean up whatever mess that was done during the setup. That's all I have to talk about today, and yes, I will share more videos in the future.